Why can't Corey and Jax see eye to eye when it comes to Shannelle? What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Lawrence Report. Tonight's broadcast is discussing episode 5 of Reasonable Doubt. And I must say this right here. This episode was so pivotal when it comes to Shannelle's case. I think this episode right here, in episode 6, we will find out, is she guilty or is she basically innocent, right? But before we get started, it'd be greatly appreciated if you guys get a subscribe button, like, and please do not forget to comment. Let's get into Reasonable Doubt. Now, I got to start off with this question right here. Like I pretty much said in the intro, why can't Jax and Corey get on the same page when it comes to Shannelle? I feel like Jax is still using the whole friend thing. I feel like Corey is moving the case along pretty swiftly, but at the same time, he's looking out for his own best interest. Like, because Corey knows that this case is going to help catapult his career into another stratosphere, y'all. But I got a lot of quick thoughts that's on my mind, so let's talk about them before we dive into this episode. This writing on this episode was absolutely top tier. The writings are always good, but there's so many good one-liners in this episode. One of my favorites was whenever Jax was talking about, oh, well, should I just get on my knees? And the guy was unfortunately talking about, you know what he said after that, but you all understand what she was talking about, a form of patriarchy, right? And also, the other line that I love, you can always bet on Jax. That's what her friend was saying. We've been through that. We always bet on Jax every single time. And another one of my favorites was when Adrian and Mr. Gerard here, whenever they're having a conversation about loyalty, he's like, yo, you know what one-way loyalty is? I'm just paraphrasing here. He's like, yo, that is slavery. I was like, bars. Like, that is slavery. Like, plain and simple, right? So, love the writing on this episode, but at the same time, I cannot defend this man at all. Lewis, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? Lewis was out here creeping, but Lewis, you know, he went in with no protection, right? He said he used it one time, but then the other time he didn't. Also, Lewis, every man knows this right here. If you're going to be out here creeping like this, you cannot save the number as the girl that you're creeping with. If her name is Shalonda, you got to name it to something like Barry Clemens or Domino's Pizza or something. Like, what are you doing, man? So, Lewis, I thought Lewis was going to be better. I was hoping he was going to be a better man this season, but Lewis is going to be the same old Lewis, y'all. Let's get into Reasonable Doubt. So, on this episode, right off the top, man, we got Shannelle and Jax going at it, you know, and the issue is, you know, Shannelle is, I don't understand why Shannelle is just hostile towards Jax. You know, Jax is working her butt off day and night, trying to figure out all the ins and outs of this case right here. And Shannelle's like, oh, you must really hate women. Because for Jax, she believes that Shannelle's protecting somebody else and that it wasn't JT, that was somebody else. And she basically needs Shannelle to come clean. They have this standoff, you know, they're going back and forth. I'm like, yo, y'all are friends. Like, and that to me, I don't understand why Shannelle is doing this right here. And I gotta say this too. If y'all notice this right here, I'm going to get back to the case, but if y'all notice, whenever Sally and the rest of the girls was at dinner, right? Did you see how upset and angry Sally was when they were talking about her cousin? And she was just had these facial expressions on her face. That leads me and lets me even know even more that Sally could be, and I said this in my last video, that I think it was Sally that may have hit JT over the head, you know, but we will see. But at the same time, Jax mentions that, listen, I do question everybody who I am defending. And I just want you to know that deflection is not necessarily a flex. And Jax is completely right on that right there. Shannelle is absolutely tripping. Like I said earlier, this woman, Jax, is going to bat for you every single day. And you turn around and you disrespect her like that. Like, we do need you to come clean about the JT situation. If it was you, just so be it. Cool. It is what it is. But if it's somebody else, if it's your daughter, if it's Sally, if it's Adrian, whoever it may be, those are my three wild cards that I think it has to be. But I'm still riding with Sally. But only time will tell. Let's transition on and talk about Corey Cash. Now, the team is around the table basically spilling their arguments about Shannelle, right? And he still believes that, listen, Shannelle's telling the truth, end of the story, end of the case. Because they thinking that it could be somebody else, things of that nature, right? But also for Corey. Corey did give a great statement, which is true about what Malcolm X, most unprotected woman is definitely the black woman. This is still happening even in 2024, right? So I appreciate the quote that Corey gave out. But Corey is hell-bent on making sure that he gets this case right. Because keep in mind, Corey got that Hispanic girl, she's still locked up, right? So I'm wondering if we're going to get more of the backstory. Was they possibly dating? You never know with Corey. You know what I'm saying? He hitting everything that's balking, if I'm being honest, right? So Corey definitely laid out some great arguments while they was in court, but it was also these two men that kind of swayed Corey into a devil den type scenario. These guys, these two other lawyers, in the firm, like, yo, Corey, come take a break with us. Let's go get a drink. Corey's like, I don't really drink like that, but he mentioned something about cigars, right? He's like, one of my frat brothers owned a cigar, and one of my favorite lines, he was like, I had to sneak y'all in from the back, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, because y'all are white. And it made me think, I was like, oh, because, a lot of times for black people back in the day, you had to go through the back door. But he was like, nah, I'm just playing with y'all. But these guys are basically running, I feel like about to play Corey somehow, some way, because both those guys, they're conspiring against Jax, right? They're like, yo, what can we do to help you win the case? And Corey basically spills his feelings to the guys, saying, listen, she claims I'm first chair, but it seems like she's really first chair, right? And when we saw that right there, I was like, no, Corey, don't do that. Don't stab Jax in the back. Y'all supposed to be doing this thing right here absolutely together, right? So later on, we do see those guys, they end up confronting Jax about, yo, step back and let Corey take it over, right? And she's like, oh, well, should I just fall down to my knees and just beg for Corey's mercy? And the guy's like, nah, you can just tickle. I was like, yo, are we patriarchy at its finest, right? So I'm like, Corey, whose side are you really on, brother? Whose side are you really, really on? And we know later we see them going to the cigar lounge and things of that nature. But even before that, this is one of my favorite parts right here. Whenever Corey said this right here, fewer emotions, more reasons, Jax, I was like, okay, cool. I see the direction that we're going in. But then she flipped it on him, because basically, we saw him getting interviewed, and then she got interviewed, and she hit him with the same exact line. So that right there was absolutely brilliant in itself. And getting back to the case was good. I think it was great arguments on both sides of the aisle when it came to the situation with Shannelle. And Shannelle ended up dropping a big bomb, basically saying that, the mother also abused JT. He basically got hit with a cigarette. I think it was a cigarette that he got burnt up a little bit. That was crazy, because we know a lot of times when those kind of things happen, it can be triggering and it can carry over, because you want to lash out on a person that hit you because you're not dealing with something that happened back in the past. So that was good in itself. Shannelle is not playing. She was like, yo, even when I got hit, the mother basically gave me glasses to cover myself up, to cover up my wounds. I was like, oh, okay. And not to mention, we haven't talked about Adrian and Mr. Gerard. Now, those two guys right there, they basically are in the same bed. They basically dancing with the devil in itself, right? Now, we know Adrian's still short of this money. Gerard ain't having it. And he tells him, listen, I need you to do whatever you got to do to get rid of Jax, right? And at the same time, they end up making a deal. Which is not going to be good, because of course at the end we end up seeing, Adrian, he ended up having that gun in his back, You know, that's how the episode ends. Now, Lewis, you low down, dirty dog, Lewis. Man, oh man. So, Tony is pregnant. You thought that maybe you was the father. Tony said, you know what? Don't worry about it. You know, it's going to be okay. I'm going to take care of the baby regardless. And, you know, you've been answering your phone. You turn your phone upside down. You and Jack's been smashing, but you really can't concentrate because in the back of your mind, you think about this baby. And also, you end up calling Tony to let her know that, listen, I want to take a test. I just want to make sure that's not mine. You claim it ain't mine. I'm like, bro, of course you gotta take a test, bro. Like, are we serious right now? Like, you can't just be out here willy-nilly, you know what I'm saying? But I did love this part. He did end up getting his son into the performing arts school, which I thought was dope. But we know there was a catch to him moving his son away so quickly to that school. But again, Lewis, I feel so bad for Jax because whenever she finds out the truth, it's gonna hurt because they've been in therapy. They was in therapy in this episode again, and you know, she's just like, I just want open, honest communication, things of that nature. And even she was like, well, whenever the children are doing something, you know, I want to be involved in it. But he's like, Lewis claims like, oh well, you've been so busy, so I just thought I'd go ahead and move them to the school myself. So I feel bad for Jax because Jax has been working so hard, you know, and Lewis, brother, it's gonna hurt. It's absolutely gonna sting for Jax. I hate this so much for her. Now, of course, I mentioned, you know, that Adrian is going to try to meet up with Jax, right? I mentioned earlier, and I can't think of the Asian guy's name right now, but the partner in crime, he decides to go with Jax, which is actually smart because, you know, in previous seasons, Jax used to basically want to take on these side missions by herself without backup. Adrian got that gun back there. Of course, Jax don't know, and the episode ends like that. Of course, he's not going to do anything like kill her. Like, ain't nobody scared of Adrian, if we're being honest, right? If anything, he's going to have the conversation. I don't think it's going to get to that. We'll see. But I think episode 6 is when we're going to find out what was really going on with Shannelle and is she guilty or not, y'all. So stay tuned, y'all. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the Lawrence Report.